Hi everyone. So we've got a new segment for the channel called Insomnia Success Stories. And I'm very, very happy to introduce Rune from Norway. And he was a previous client of mine. So if you're new to the channel, you don't know me. Also a previous chronic insomniac of 20 years, overcame with what I now share with people, work with the NHS, MOD, 2 books on insomnia. Day to day, I work with people just like Rune and help them with their sleep. So welcome. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming on here. If I could get a little bit of a background on your own insomnia, just all of it, how it made you think, how it made you feel, and we'll kind of kick off. Anything you want to say, please do say. I'm very happy to hear.
Yeah. Well, it's my problems started about 4 years ago. So it started off with not like insomnia, but sleep issue, bad sleep. It's waking up early in the morning, and it got gradually worse. And I tried first to help myself with calming music and meditation apps and taking supplements, warm baths, and but at that time I had some stress in my life, a lot of work and so on. So it did not improve, and it gradually got worse. And at one point, I went to my doctor, and he helped me the best way he could by giving me some pills. So I had the pills for a while, but didn't feel that they addressed the root of the problem. So it just it didn't help me with the initial problem. So the sleep got worse over some time. I went to the doctor again and some other pills, and so gradually just getting worse. And I went to the doctor once again after some months, and I got he sent me through to a sleep center in healthcare, and they offered me this CBTi program. So I went through this program in the healthcare system. They had a setup which was really strict with patients. I started off with 4 hours of sleep.
Okay.
There and
Yeah. Okay. That's quite it. Yeah. Even in the UK, 5 hours is, I would never go that, but 4 hours. Yeah. That's, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
bro, that was really tough. 4 hours, 14 days, add 15 minutes. So after 14 days, I had 15 minutes more, and new 14 days, but another 15 minutes. So that was really, really tough getting through. Staying awake until 3 a.m., going to work 7:30 in the mornings. That was really, really tough. I got through it, and I had sleep scheduling and counseling, cognitive therapy with a psychologist. But I was through these therapists with for over a year. Over a year. But I still from my problems.
So often when doctors, they talk to you about insomnia, they talk about not being able to sleep, but they seem to miss what it's actually doing to the rest of your life in terms of the obsessive nature of insomnia. During your own, how did it make you think and feel at nighttime, and how did it make you think and feel during the day? What was it like living day to day with the condition?
Well, it was really tough trying to manage work and family. And what happened with me is that when you have these sleep problems over a long time, of course, have the anxiety, the worry about not sleeping, about not performing at work the next day. And it gets stronger and stronger, when you have a lack of sleep over many days. So then you get this hyper arousal, with, increase of pulse and stress hormone in the evening, and that makes things even worse. So, then what I was missing in this CBTi program I had in Norway was that no one didn't understand this part of it, the anxiety, the the stress about not having sleep and the worrying.
And where was this anxiety? Was it in bed at night time or thinking about going to bed, or was it something that was you were just carrying around with you all day? Where would you put this anxiety? Because often insomnia thought of as, okay, it's just something that interferes with your night times. But where, did this anxiety ever go away? Was it always kind of with you, or is it sometimes better, sometimes less, depending on how well you happen to be sleeping in the 4 years?
Well, for me, when I had these really bad periods, I thought about sleep all the from when I got up in the morning, how much coffee I drink, how I behave, do to improve my sleep in the night. The hyperarousal came at nighttime, maybe 10 o'clock in the evening when it was closer to bedtime. It could just watch TV and maybe not think about sleep at all. But then, you know, sweaty palms, increasing pulse, stress came to me, even thinking about sleep. So it's this fight or flight mechanism just switching on in the brain. And it's some major issue for me.
And I think that's often what is missed, just how much anxiety sleep causes them. So when you went to see your CBTi specialist in Norway, and you were hoping that it would get fixed, and you worked with them for a year and they didn't seem to understand insomnia, how did that make you feel? Because you'd already tried the warm baths, the meditation, the relaxation, and then you were given kind of this promise that now you've got something that says it's going to work, and it still didn't. What was your confidence like after that, where you were trying really hard on this program, and by the sound of it, doing everything they were saying, 4 hours, forget it. I think, sticking to this really strict schedule and not seeing improvements. How was that feeling when you had that?
Well, it was really frustrating. That I felt the main issue for me wasn't addressed in these therapy sessions. So it's very obvious for me now that I've been through your program that having experience with this is the key fact. A person who hasn't experienced the anxiety, the worry, it's a game changer for me. So that was I didn't understand that in the beginning, that my therapists had no experience with this. Now it's a totally different thing talking to someone having the experience. Yeah.
And so, let's talk about that. So, you'd had this 4 years. You spent a year trying to fix it with a therapist in Norway. How did you first stumble across my work?
Well, I think as many others, when you have a problem, you're trying to solve it in any way. So you, of course, use the internet and Googling stuff, and Mr. Zuckerberg and his friends, they know what you're interested in, so they make it on social media. So it just by a coincidence you turned up in a video on my Instagram. So I suddenly, oh wow, this guy, he knows how my condition is. I just immediately connected to what you said, because you said things in a very, very different way. And it was obvious that your experience was the same as me. So it just resonated with me immediately. So that's how I got in here.
And then you contacted me. We were working together. How long has it been now? It's at least a year and a half. We were working together. So I remember you sent me an email, and we worked on the Platinum paper together, where we I think we met eight times over 2 months. And then when you started working with me, how would you say it was different in terms of the course that you'd been on in Norway? And were you still, because you'd done so much that hadn't worked in the past, were you still how was your confidence that actually something would work? Because obviously you'd seen the videos, but you hadn't actually seen any outcome yet from them yet. You just set out something in a different way. So when you first started working with me, how did things change, and how was that experience, would you say?
Well, the main difference from my CBTi program in the healthcare system was that it was only sleep restrictions, sleep scheduling, and conversations with a therapist. Nothing else. So when I started in your program, I read your book, I had the journaling, and the videos that I see over again. And that was really the combination of theory and journaling. And I really like the combination that was in your program. I could read your work, and you told your story through the book, and I could really relate to them. And that was the first time for me I felt there are actually something who have exactly the same experience as me. And that was the first time.
Okay.
Or more. I've Googled a lot and been into many websites before
Yes.
you. So it really hit me here. My problem at the root. Yeah.
And it is strange because everyone seems to say that, but it's exactly the same. It sounds like you wrote the book for me, or you made the course for me. I made the course for people with insomnia, and people with insomnia, they may be doing different things. Some people might be doing the hot bath, some people might kiwi brew, but the same patterns, the same thoughts, the same feeling, the same fears, the same obsession, the same anxiety, the same sort of limiting of your life. I see pretty much with everyone that I speak to. So it's a little frustration of mine that there's people working with people with insomnia, and yet they don't seem to know what insomnia is. I think everyone probably watching this has resonated with everything you're saying, and think, well, I do that. I took the hot baths, I took the kiwi fruits, I had the same fears, anxiety, obsessions. Because I think there's just universal. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy you found me and could start working with me.
Yeah, it was very comforting for me hearing from someone with the same experience. But because in my other CBTi program, I'm very lonely, because I talk to anyone with a similar problem with me. I have no friends or family who have had this condition. So it was a great relief, to find someone
Yeah.
Same.
And that loneliness, I think, is something that you
Yeah.
know, everyone with insomnia experiences, because if they don't have insomnia, they don't get it. They, why can't you sleep? They just don't understand it. I mean, I think it's natural to start removing yourself and not talking to people about it, because if people don't understand it, then, I felt a bit of a burden to people when I had mine, because there were so many things I felt I couldn't do because of my insomnia. But being around other people who didn't have it, I felt like I was bringing everyone down. Yeah, let's speak more about the kind of the loneliness of the condition, because I think that's a real common thing that I hear from people. In what way do you think it made you feel lonely, would you say?
Well, especially at nighttime, you want wife and family and so on. And of course, if you're wandering around the house night after night, trying to read books and watch some TV or something, the night is very long and lonely when it gets dark rather than everyone else.
Especially in Norway.
Actually, normal.
What?
So that's one part of it, and then maybe some loneliness. When you don't have anyone to talk about who understands what this is in a block, because it's hard for others to understand what it's like to be in really actual sleep for 14 days. That's another kind of loneliness with the condition, not having people understanding.
And so things started to change. So you started working on my program. We started meeting weekly. You got the workbook, you got the videos. When do you think you started turning a corner with this condition? So you were a whole year working on it in Norway. When do you think you started seeing results? So we kind of go for the first couple of weeks working with me. How did you experience that? Was it tricky, hard? Was there lack of confidence? Was there a lack of, how, in your own words, whatever you want to say, how did it feel the early days of my program working with me?
Well, finally, it was as I first saw your first video. I just had this experience with, wow, somebody really understand this. So when I started reading your workbook and started the methods in your program, it only took a couple of weeks before I saw results. It was really, really comforting talking to someone who understand, and that was the key for me. To read something in your work, you describe things exactly as how we expect. So that was a great relief for me. Someone thoroughly having someone to understand how it feels. Yeah.
And we did do behavior changes, but they weren't the real sledgehammer. Nothing like a 4-hour bedtime restriction. I think if I remember rightly, it was 6.5, or just, and not even this real strict. You must. It was more of a softer, gentle kind of invitation to give yourself enough sleep opportunity, but not too much.
Yes, it's a 2-hour difference, but it's a major difference. It's a major difference because having only 4 hours over a long period, 4 hours in bed, it's not necessarily 4 hours of sleep, but only 4 hours in bed. That's a really tough to get through. You can do that for some days, but doing that 14 days. That was really tough.
Yeah.
Really 6 hours, as I did in your program, big difference. It feels, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I think 6 hour was more than good enough. Yeah. What was really important for me, it was to have that same time in the morning. Yeah, key for me. all the time in the weekends or holidays, getting up at the same time. That was a key for me as well. So when I got a little better, I did go to bed when I was tired. Advices from the course, and that worked really well for me. But I have implemented this sleep window from midnight till 6 when I had some relapses.
Okay.
So
Yeah, very good. We'll get onto that in a bit. It's nice to, I suppose, hear that actually it gives you the tools to, because I think I like to be honest with people. It's not a kind of quick fix, and sometimes you can still get relapses and setbacks. It's about retraining your brains. I think to have that understanding that relapses might happen even after you fixed your sleep is incredibly important, because you don't want to have something that works for a bit and then you can't use in the future. But yeah, so 2 weeks in, much more gentle sleep window. But you're saying about the kind of the journaling and the other aspects of the course. I was deliberately asking you if you remember to start doing far more in the daytime. Not to fix your insomnia, but to stop it being something that's controlling your every waking thought. How did it feel to face up to the fears and the anxieties around your sleep?
well, well, as you said, I did avoid a lot of things in the bad periods, and especially in my social life. Of course, when you have bad periods, it's harder to be social, and you avoid doing things because of your condition. But when I went through your program, I realized that you have to try to live a normal life, even if you have insomnia, as best as you can. And my experience was that avoiding things, avoiding being social, just kind of feeded my insomnia. Just made me focus more on my problem, because I was doing adjustments in my life to improve my sleep. I think the key is try to live a normal life, even if it can be the best as you
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
And we discussed this with a huge thing for you was actually meeting up in the evening, socializing with friends and drinking alcohol in the evening. Advice out there is to not drink any alcohol before bed at all. But then you can't do that, and then you can't do TV, and you can't do this, and then before you know it, then you've got a load of rules. So actually, a part of me was to go out and start drinking with your friends again, and that was a major sticking point, I think, for you, because even though before you had insomnia, you could do that and be fine. It was quite a major challenge, I think, when we first started working on that, because of the fear of what if I don't sleep so well, doing that. So I think that was one of the areas that was a little bit tricky when we were working together. That was one of your major sticking points. How did it first feel when I was asking you to start doing that again?
Well, it was a relief, actually.
Okay.
I had been, avoiding things for a long time, and I think just doing things in spite of your problems, and kind of turns your focus away from your problems.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
keep your mind busy, away from your problems, thinking about other things, focusing on the things that are positive, that are fun. Of course, when you've had a really poor night of sleep, it's you feel kind of foggy head, of course. But if you kind of force yourself to just try to live a normal life. I think that's one of the keys in this problem. Just not avoiding too much things.
Yeah, and I like your honesty about it, because after a poor night's sleep, of course, you're not going to feel as good as if you'd slept well. But I think there's a big difference between doing absolutely nothing during the daytime and allowing someone to push you further back, and he's starting to move in the direction of trying to, trying to do more in the daytime to stop it taking more from you. And it was, and I'm glad you called it a relief, because I think when you actually get given permission, okay, so I can still do the behaviors of a normal sleeper and still sleep. But just, like doing what you used to do 4 years ago before this all started. And suddenly when you start doing the behaviors of what you used to do, your sleep started to revert back to how it used to be before you had the condition. I'm glad, I'm happy how quickly you took the advice on board and actually got stuck in and did it. Because I think for a lot of people, it's very, very hard because they're so used to controlling their sleep and hiding from their sleep to actually have the confidence to go in the opposite direction of everything that they've been doing in the past to try and manage the condition. I think it does take courage, and it does take a little bit of, a little bit of standing with your shoulders against insomnia. But that was a major thing. So on the nights where you do something that I would ask you and you would get a poor night of sleep, how did that feel when I effectively asked you to do something which might have, you don't know what caused the poor night's sleep, but how did it feel after you slept poorly, after I asked you to do something? What did that feel like?
Well, it didn't affect me in a very negative way. I've tried so many things. In my last program, it was very important that you should not look at TV in the evenings and read a really boring book. And no telephone.
Punish yourself punish yourself for not sleeping. Okay. Yeah.
Punishing yourself for not sleeping. Read the worst book you have. So in your program, it was a lot more relaxed about these sleep hygiene measures, watch TV if that's make you sleepy. So it was a relief for me as well. So recovering from this, it's not even on or off. It's a slow process. So on the way you learn what's working, what's not working well, how to think about your condition and so on. So it's quite a long process.
Yeah. And it is, like you said, it is a slow kind of gradual process where it's not like you start working on these behaviors and thought pattern changes and then everything gets better right away. I think you do get these ups and downs where some days can be good, some days can be bad. But I think just the general awareness that things are gradually improving. I think we discussed about it when we were first working together. I remember the first couple of weeks I'd ask you about your week, and it would be, you would say, oh, Tuesday was a good night, Wednesday, and then you get very kind of hyped, sort of focused on each individual days. And I think with you, I started to notice a big difference in how your thought patterns were changing when later on in the program I'd ask you how your week was. And instead of saying, oh, Wednesday was good, Tuesday was bad, and I think I did this, you started telling me more of the fun things that you were doing during the daytime and during the evening. And in a way, you weren't even talking about your sleep, or if you did mention your sleep. Yeah, I think I slept, well most of the week, and I had a couple of okay-ish nights and one poor night or something like that. Your actual focus on was shifted far more onto the daytime and what you were doing during the day, so that you weren't constantly obsessing and thinking about your condition. And I think that's with you. That's how I knew that you were starting to slowly shift your thought patterns when it came to this.
Well,
What I
yeah.
did ask you to do, I do quite like written. For some people, they really like written exercises, because I think you were journaling before. What of the written exercises would you say resonated with you, if you can remember them? I mean, we've been a good year and a half, but which of the workbook written exercises did you find helpful, would you say?
Well, I think the gratitude journal
Really,
was a great tool for me.
really,
Because, you know, when you have insomnia problems, you get into a very dark place of mind, you know, in the bad periods. So, trying to work progressively with changing your focus, being just positive during the day, not focusing on your problem, but keep focusing on your successes, what you're grateful for, what's good, and write them down every day, maybe twice a day. Very helpful for me for changing your state of mind towards the problem. Yeah.
And I'm glad, because I think that's probably one of the hardest ones not persuade people, to invite people to do, because I think people are so desperate to fix their problem, and then I'm asking them to do something which seems to have absolutely nothing to do with sleep. But that is essentially, shifting the focus onto your daytimes and look to something that isn't trying to fix your problem. So it's not this thing that's constantly up in front of your face. And I think, when people do have this condition, it's so natural just to descend into this really dark hole of complete despair. And to bring people out of that, to actually look around them and open their eyes, actually, other aspects of their life, I think is quite an important thing. So I'm glad you did the gratitude channel. It's one of my tricky ones for clients to do. It's I'll mention it gently, and I know only about a third of people actually do it, but it's fine. It's you can't make anyone do anything, but it is helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things about having insomnia is that you get in this dark place that dominates state, extremely worried all day long. If you had a really bad night, of course you feel bad all day long, or whatever. But the trick is try to stay positive. The cliche, but slowly. But when you manage to shift your focus from condition to just keep its hours, to work with it, get through the day. So for me, that was very helpful.
First 2 weeks, kind of a lot of analyzing and obsessing, and that slowly started to fade away. Doing a lot more during the daytime. The written exercise was incredibly helpful as well. So coming towards the end of the program, we've been working together 8 weeks by now. How were you by the time we'd finished the course?
The course really changed my thinking about my own condition. It was new to me. I didn't experience that with my master's program. So for me, it was a really game changer, and I saw changes bigger in a few weeks in your program than over a year in the last program, because I addressed the root. I talked to someone who understands me, and the combination of videos, workbooking, journaling, and this, it really worked for me. So by the end of our course, I wasn't cured 100%, but the improvement was I don't know how much, but it was extremely much better than it was when we started.
Yeah.
So it worked really well for me.
Yeah. And what I found really interesting when you said about the improvement, you didn't actually mention your sleep at all. You mentioned how your thought patterns shifted when it came to your sleep, because that's the real, and I said it before, that's why I knew that you were I was really starting to see improvements and changes when I started seeing your thought patterns shift. And exact same thing there when I asked you how you were, you didn't mention that you were sleeping better. I know you were sleeping better and you know you were sleeping better, but you focused on your thought patterns and how your thought patterns had changed around your sleep. And I think that is the real kind of crux of how insomnia is overcome. You can force people to sleep if you give them 4 hours of sleep. Anyone's going to sleep if you only allow them 4 hours of sleep. But that's not going to solve, like you said, the root of the problem. How was it once you actually finished the program? So you weren't 100% there. What were the next, let's say 6 months after the program? Setbacks, relapses, how was it?
Yeah, my improvement was great during the course. Maybe I had an expectation to just get rid of it overnight, after the course. Maybe my expectations were too high. After some weeks, months, I did have some small relapses, bad periods, and I got out of it again. But when relapses happened to me, the worrying, the anxiety came back immediately because I thought I was rid of it. When it came, I was really, really worried. Oh no, now it's back. It's back to square one, as it was before. But as time passed and I got out of the bad periods, I realized that I know a way out now. The time between the relapses increased. The relapses did come, but what the course did with me was that I now knew a way out of it. Because that was the greatest frustration for me in the beginning, that I could not see which way to go. So the course gave me tools, to get out of the problem. And when I had the relapses, I was much more relaxed about it. As before, you were really, really worried about how am I get out of this. But after the course, when I had relapses, I was like, okay, I have a relapse, but now I know I have tools to get out of it. Maybe I just had to wait it out a few days, and did not get the hyperarousal as before, because now I was more relaxed about it will pass, I will get better. So my improvement, it has been like a upward going curve, slowly upwards with a few speed bumps on the way, but it's slowly getting better, and the bad periods, the good periods, are getting longer and longer. Now, December, a period of almost 6 months without any signs of a relapse. So
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I
still
think that's,
improving.
it's really important to kind of have that awareness that, yeah, I think it's, if you've slept really well for a long time after the program and you get a night or sleep or 2 poor nights, the meaning you can put on it, does this mean that I've gone back to square one? Does this mean I've got insomnia again? So it means I have to do the whole program all again. And you can get that initial kind of real visceral bit from it, because it's almost like PTSD, because you've had that experience in the past and you're just desperate not to go back there. But I think, just that like you said, that understanding that, okay, this isn't insomnia, this is just a poor night of sleep because of stress, because of this, or I don't even know why. There's thousands of variables that can affect your sleep. And you don't, sometimes it's not even helpful to run through them and try and guess and second guess what they are. But I think, like you said, just that kind of confidence that if you just sit it out, don't change anything, don't do anything, don't trip down that rabbit hole, this will pass. And I think, once you kind of got to that level of understanding where you've proven to yourself you can sleep, it's so much easier to get back to that again by essentially doing the same behaviors that you were doing when you were a good sleeper, which you can't ever tell people that at the start of the course before they've proven to themselves that they can sleep. But yeah, it's I think it's really important to let people know that it's to kind of expect that. Because if you know to expect relapses afterwards and that you are going to be okay, it's an important message to people.
Yeah, I think that's the key to overcoming insomnia. It's here to with which path to go, and not to be overstressed about it. Because say, would a normal sleeper do this? That normal sleeper doesn't think about how he sleeps.
Yeah.
He just
Yeah.
and
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great to have access to your videos, to your work, and then pick it up when I need it. You just get reminded, techniques, finding the way. That's been very helpful.
Yeah, I think it's what I like to the people once they've stopped working with me one-to-one, that they've still got the forum access and they've still got the work, but they still got all the videos. And even on my YouTube channel, people can ask me. I'm happy for people ask me questions indefinitely forever on my YouTube channel, because it helps the channel grow, because other people can read the comments. So people get free advice on my YouTube channel. So I suppose the support never ends. But I think most people, they reach a point where they just don't need it anymore. And then they can then, I'm interested to know, have you spoken to any people with insomnia and asked the advice on, and is there anyone that you kind of, I'm always keen to see how this is sort of spreading. Is there been anyone that you know in your life that sleeps poorly and then you...
Well, my friends and family, of course, know that I'm struggling with this. So, but I don't think people really know the difference between the insomnia and having some minor sleep issues. A lot of people asking me, well, they slept poorly for a few days, and they come to me and ask for advice and so on. And I think many people just need some sleep hygiene advice, simple things, being active and not drinking coffee at night times and so on. But no, I do not have anyone in my life who have the same experience as me. Serious issue, like insomnia over time. So so that's why it's been very important for me to be in contact with this support group and or videos, because I don't have anyone near me.
Yeah.
I've directed some people who have issues, and they ask me for and have guided them into your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Yeah. I think, I don't know if there's anything more to say, really. I think fantastic. You had chronic insomnia. You found my course, and then it wasn't this plain trajectory out of there, but you put these gentle behavioral changes in place, these gentle thought pattern changes in place, and now you see well. So how did it feel now, being free of your insomnia and not having something that no one else understands because you don't now have it anymore? What's life like now after insomnia?
Well, it's a life changer for me, because having insomnia, it makes it limits your life in some ways. It does. So being free of it, it changes everything actually. Being in normal. So it's life changing.
I think I always want to, remind people that it was them who've done it. So it was you that got out of it. It was you that did all the thought pattern change work and getting stuck back into your days again. And I suppose it's something I always need to remind people that they were the person who there's no lifeboat, I think, that comes to save you when it comes to this condition. You that does this, and I'm just a guide that kind of puts you down the right path, but people have to walk it. And you walked it amazingly, and now you're there. So, thank you.
I think it's important to know for people that it's a slow process getting out of it. You have to be patient, and you have to work consistently over a long period of time. I think
I think patience, consistency, and what you were very good at, the self-kindness as well. And it can come quite hard for a lot of people to have that. But yeah, I think that is key. I think I will wrap it up. Thank you very, very much for coming onto the channel and sharing your experience with everyone to hopefully give them the confidence and motivation that this can be fixed, because there'll be people watching this who were where you were 4 years ago. And so just knowing that there's a path out of it, like you said, and that you don't have to live this forever, I think is a huge thing, because when you've tried everything and nothing works, then your head just gets lower and lower. So hopefully you've lifted a lot of people's heads up and at least given them the confidence to at least try all of this stuff. And I've got all my free videos on YouTube. I've got a load of free stuff. And so you don't even have to spend money to start this. Obviously I've got my books and my programs, but if you've been watching the videos for a while, people watching, and you need the confidence that it can be overcome. It's sitting there, right there. He's out of it. And living proof right there. All right. Thank you. Any closing words you'd like to say at this point?
No, with your, just my, if I could give one advice, it would be, be patient. It will take long. Be active, and get up at the same time in the morning. That's why, my key advice is 15.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Post in the comment section if you've enjoyed this video. Comments, questions, I will answer them. As you see, I answer every single question. But thank you very much, Luna. Enjoy Norway. Skiing, hopefully coming soon. We were talking about diving. He's talking earlier. So when we get off camera, be good to talk a little bit more about that once I stop recording. But I'll see you on the next video, everybody. I'll be uploading a video in about a week's time. All right. Bye.